Okay, welcome everyone. It's time yet again for our headphones. Join me. There we go. We can hear. A quick note that if you'd like this conversation in another language, feel free to scan that QR code and download the Speaksy app. And there you go. I have on stage with me Anastasia Kuskova, who is the founder and CEO of Be Sirius. It's wonderful to have you. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned you're losing your voice, but I think I can hear you fine, and
Cool.
just make you talk for 12 minutes, and then
Yeah.
it'll be over.
I think headphones help. So
Yeah,
that's good.
good, good. So I'd love to start first. Let's start with what is Be Serious and kind of set the stage on the what problem you're working on.
Yeah, so essentially, I worked for 12 years in the mining and metal space and ended my corporate career as a chief sustainability officer at a $10 billion metal producer. And right now, we are building an AI software for sustainability officers in the metal and mining space. So essentially, I'm building tools for my former self, tools that I lacked as a sustainability officer for doing stuff that I absolutely hated, which is not part of the job. So automating and operationalizing a lot of sustainability data exchange that happens, and which is very specific to our industry.
Very, very cool. So you're taking AI, which is cutting edge technology, very traditional industry, metals and mining. How does that work? When does that break down? Is that a big challenge?
Yeah, so essentially, my first startup experience was corporate startup where we built with largest giants in the industry, also backed by Tesla and some other players. We built a traceability tool for tracing metals from mine to EV battery to make sure that there are no human rights violations and so on. So it was a corporate startup. So I mistakenly thought that I was oblivious enough to think that a real startup is anything, something similar. It's anything but. Yeah, so essentially I always had this urge to innovate in this traditional industry, and traditional industries are, for obvious reasons, are very hard to penetrate, and they change very, very slowly. But also, I think for startups, it's a massive, massive overlooked opportunity because a lot of startups today try to. I even know founders who tell me, like, "Oh, we don't do anything complex. Let's just do something. I don't know, financial services, IT companies type of clients because it's easy. You close fast, etc. So you can show the revenue increase and so on." We don't do anything tough. The consultants do that, and this is a reasonable strategy. But also in the industry, if you know industry very well, you can really transform it, and there's a huge potential. So we need 6 times more metals to meet the world net zero ambition, and this industry really needs change, and it's massively overlooked by solutions, and that is why I suffered being a sustainability officer, not actually having access to those solutions.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's fascinating because you are in the corporate world. You have both the vantage point of an entrepreneur, but then also I know we have corporates with us today. We have entrepreneurs hoping to sell to corporates, vice versa. What has been the biggest differences, a corporate startup versus a startup?
Well, with corporate startup, there are several obvious benefits. You're well funded.
Long runway.
Yeah, long runway. So companies don't really expect you, like, you don't need the hockey stick thingy in the corporate startup. So and you have support from the industry. But if you are also being a corporate startup, you have a lot of red tape because you are funded by industry players. So it's hard to change their opinions. They also have like conflicting interests on if your startup is trying to eat away their share or something. There are like a lot of conflicting interests. But it's a lot of stakeholder management. There is a lot of stakeholder management as a startup founder, but it's significantly less in proper startup compared to the corporate one. And with proper startup, it's proper gives it a sense that it's the right one. No, I mean like the startup self-created, self-funded, and venture type of startup. You have much more personal risks. It's much harder, especially given the traditional industry. It's much harder to get support from the industry. So that's why for us it was detrimental that and super important that we had experience in the industry, that we knew people, that we can open doors because they already know me. We met, they know that I was a sustainability officer. I worked with them at the World Economic Forum or somewhere, so we cross paths. It's like you have this, it's an advantage for us. It's much harder for other companies from the street to penetrate this industry without this, recognition from the players.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are trying to build something where the buyer is a corporate or a really traditional industry? Is it that find those ins or?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. There has to be an advantage on why you, like, they have to understand that you understand them.
Yeah.
You have to speak the same language. And this is like, I sometimes on LinkedIn get viral posts, and those viral posts are only about the things that I felt as a sustainability officer.
Yeah.
Because I can speak the same language, and this is critical to speak the same language as the buyer, so that they understand that you understand the complexities of their industry. But also you have to innovate, so it's like a delicate balance. And what we do, for example, with Sirius, we're right now entering an extremely inefficient process.
Okay.
We try to make it very efficient without really changing the process. But our big idea is that we actually going to change the process. But first, we're just going to make it very, very efficient, and then we will transform it slowly. So
Trojan
it's a cool. Yeah, but like you have to take it step by step, and like it has to be a paced change, and you have to be very patient because the closing cycle will be long.
Yeah. And as you're thinking about potential customers, and you're selling a very cutting edge technology to a very traditional client, how do you gauge their readiness to think about new things and new technologies and their ability to be if not an early adopter, an adopter?
Yeah, I think here it's as for every startup, you have to address the pain, and like it has to be something like people, like our first phrase on the website, you've suffered enough. Because like you did, like they have suffered enough, and it's such a horrible process that we have to go through. Then like when we receive like let's say ESG requests from customers or customers of the customers or customers of the customers, so like people spend 80% of their time on filling out spreadsheets, and nobody becomes sustainability officer to fill out spreadsheets.
Right.
So like we have to we narrow down like typical companies that feel it. Depends on the size, depends on the structure of organization, where they are in the value chain, and we test it. But you see the sign, then you start to explain to them what you do. They're like, I want it, please. Tomorrow,
Help me.
yeah. I'll make our IT and security team go for it. Just please.
Find a way.
Yeah.
And so tell me about the team that's working with you and how you built that team, what skills you looked for to complement your own.
Yeah, well, so my co-founders are, we now are 10, but my co-founders, we are 3. One of them, we worked together at the same metal and mining company. He was head of strategy, and we built the corporate startup together. And he's a good friend. And a third co-founder, we studied together, so we know each other for many, many years. And he previously built supercomputers, and like he's the data nerd in the team. So there was 3 of us for almost a year before we got our pre-seed funding. So we were building, figuring out, doing pilots, and now we have a fantastic team. So for us, of course, the most important is to be excited about the product, about what we're doing. AI, we are AI company. Even if it's a founder, I'm hiring for founder associate. You have to be literate in AI. You have to use AI for everything, because that's just makes you so much more efficient. And I also hire people I know or worked with for specifically for the sustainability team, because that's where I know the core talent and like the knowledge of the industry comes from.
Yeah.
But on IT, I mean, it's a tough market. You have to be very convincing to convince AI engineers to join you. But
Yeah, that's a competitive hire at the moment.
I was just saying, sorry. I was just telling my co-founders that the only thing I do now is sell to customers, sell to investors, sell to partners, and sell to employees.
Yeah.
Prospect employees, yeah.
And talk to me about selling to investors. What has your experience been like fundraising as a woman? What have you experienced on your journey?
Well, I think I made a horrible decision to start fundraising in mid-June last year, which was like two trends coincide. I think it was very stupid. Never do that. So it's two trends coincided: July and August, which are dead months, like summer, and also winter. So I think I'm still traumatized after July and August. So I'm telling my team now, we have to close as much in June as we can because July is coming. So, so that was not a good start. But in September and October, things picked up so well. And I also learned that I need to, in a way, simplify things because we were too industry specific, not really understanding, not really explaining what we do, etc. And also mining metal industry has such a horrible reputation. Then you start, I'm doing sustainability things for metals and mining. Everyone's like, human rights, child labor, blood diamonds, all of this. And then so I started opening my pitches with showing the big picture, like we need 6 times more metals for the green transition.
Yeah.
Fossil fuel economy is powered by fossil fuels. Green economy is actually powered by metals. And then the investors see that blood diamonds, human rights is all forgotten. They see huge market. So being able to articulate your vision, even if you are super expert. And I think that's also an issue for a lot of maybe female founders.
Yeah.
That we try to show too much expertise, and that's not really what makes your product sexy for investors.
Right.
Of course, there will be moments where you need to demonstrate your expertise, but when you pitch, you need to really show the excitement, the energy about the market, and the potential of the market, and the need for the solution. How overlooked the industry is in our case, and so on. So that's what's important. Not to use jargon and acronyms for regulations and stuff. So.
Nice. And so we can transition to taking questions from the audience in just a minute, but I want to comment that I think a lot of folks here are very interested in sustainability. Potentially some people want to be a chief sustainability officer one day. I follow you on LinkedIn, and I saw your hilarious post where you're basically taking the speech that America Ferrera gives as the mom in Barbie about sexism, and you're adapting it to the plights you faced as a chief sustainability officer. Can you say a little bit about that? Is it a really tough job because it's so...
Yeah, I think it's becoming very political, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of you're always in between two things, and it's delicate balance, but I think nobody gets it because you cannot greenwash, you cannot greenhash. You cannot greenwashing if somebody doesn't know, that's not telling about your success, and greenwashing is telling too much about your success. Then you need to speak about problems, but not too much, because then that means you don't do enough. You cannot complain about too many regulations because everyone thinks it's anti-progress, but then some of the regulations really stupid and don't make any sense and don't bring any impact. I mean, really, unfortunately, that's the reality.
Yeah.
And as a sustainability officer, you're not allowed to say that. You will be there will be a shitstorm on LinkedIn. And I actually wrote this post after I saw some sustainability team member from Pepsi being absolutely trashed for complaining, for having too many standards to report to. I mean, that's a reasonable concern.
Yeah.
And regardless of how Pepsi performs on their sustainability, everyone went berserk on you have to you are such a shitty, terrible company, and you're okay. I'm not just as a sustainability officer. I'm not going to say anything anymore because I'm afraid that I will be trashed. And and everyone is cheering and applauding. So and then I was you can't say anything right as a sustainability officer, because whatever you do, if you work for a corporate, you'll be blamed for all of the deadly sins. And honestly, it's a very hard job because you have to sell constantly internally, because everyone internally needs to see business case for sustainability, or why do we do this and not that, and so on. And then also you cannot support your team because everything is long term. in sustainability. Everything is long term. You cannot have quick successes. And I see I can talk about that forever. I'm wrapping up. And like you need to motivate your team, but then if they cannot talk about problems and they cannot talk about successes, like how do you get good talent there? So yeah.
So it's good there are tools that are making some part of their life easier.
Yeah, they told me that this post, like somebody from Wall Street Journal wrote me like, I'm taking quotes from this. I was like, okay.
Great. It was so cool. Follow Anastasia on LinkedIn and you can see it too. We have time for one question because I have been hogging the air. There we go. We have someone.
Thank you so much. My name is Wim de Keizer. First of all, thank you for the insightful presentation. I have a question regarding sustainable data collection. So me, myself, as a sustainable officer as well, I sometimes walk against sustainable data collection itself. What are your tactics on collecting sustainable data, and what sustainable topics are you collecting?
So you mean you have troubles collecting data on your supply chain or on your company?
On the company.
On the company. Well, depending on the size of the company, right? So for us, what we do, we really come to companies that are a little bit more mature on their data level, and we help them organize data in sustainability twin, how we call it, capturing data from various sources and also like spreadsheets, whatever, because especially in the mining and metal companies, a lot of information is not really in ERP. Again, it's very traditional and nobody wants to spend money on sustainability ERP. So like you have a bunch of spreadsheets, also reports, audit reports, and we take that information. But the big part for us is that we also capture context information, so not only metrics, right? And the context is very important for social, human rights, everything, metrics, like how your policies are worded, how your commitments are worded, etc. I think AI in general, depending on the industry, but in general, AI can help a lot with this in like integrating all of the tools that you have within the company. And like putting them all in one, I don't know, like database, or data lake is a bad word, like let's say database. So for us, that fancy database is the twin. And I think for different industries, different approaches could work. But there is definitely huge potential. But if you talk about like gathering data on the site, you have to have the meters. Like there is no much to do about it. You have to have the meters. You have to have the stuff on the ground.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anastasia, thank you so much. It was great to have you here.
Thanks. Thank you.
To hear about what you're building. We wish you the best of luck. Round of applause. And just quickly before we go, in approximately 11 minutes, we'll have Matthijs join me on the stage, and we will be talking about VC trends, things we're seeing in the Netherlands, outlook on the past, and maybe some outlook on the future. So stick around for that. Thank you.